She texts you at midnight, not because she misses you, because she needs to know you are still there, still waiting, still watching, still eager. The reply you send in 2 minutes tells her everything she needs to know about who holds the frame. Jung called it the test of individuation, the moment you surrender your center to another's chaos. The woman does not do this with malice. She does it because nature wired her to find the man who cannot be moved. Your collapse is not her victory. It is her disappointment. You think devotion means availability. You think love means erasing your plans when she changes hers. She interprets your flexibility as weakness, not kindness. The man who bends too far loses the shape she was drawn to in the first place. Every relationship is a mirror. What she shows you is what you allow. If she arrives late, interrupts, and dismisses your boundaries, you taught her that your time has no weight. You did not set the rule. You demonstrated it through silence. Silence is not peace. Silence is permission dressed as patience. Attention is the modern throne. Whoever controls where your eyes go controls your decisions. She sends a cryptic message, watches how fast you spiral into analysis. You reread it 20 times, draft 3 responses, and delete 2. That 10-minute window is her reading your sovereignty, like a balance sheet. The anima is not your enemy. It is the image of the feminine you carry inside. When you project that image onto her, you stop seeing who she actually is. You see the fantasy, the potential, the woman you need her to be. She feels the weight of that projection and begins to test whether you can see clearly. Most men fail the test in the first 3 months. They negotiate boundaries that they should enforce. They explain why respect matters, rather than walking away when it is absent. The explanation is the leak. She does not need your reasoning. She needs your backbone. Masculine sovereignty is not cruelty. It is the refusal to manage her emotions at the cost of your mission. When she is upset, you can be present without absorbing her storm. You do not need to fix her, rescue her, or prove your worth by becoming her therapist. The man who stays calm teaches her that chaos does not govern his choices. She will quietly destroy you by making herself the priority you orbit. Not through demand, but through the small concessions you grant without noticing. You skip the gym because she wants to see you. You canceled the project because she is bored. You become the man who is always there, which makes you the man she stops seeing. Scarcity is not a game, it is a signal. The man who has no mission outside of her has nothing she can respect. She does not want to be your purpose. She wants to be chosen by a man who already has one. When you hollow out your life to make space for her comfort, you become the empty room she no longer wants to enter. Chess is the metaphor that matters here. Every move you make teaches her the board. If you sacrifice your queen for her pawn, she learns you do not value your pieces. The relationship becomes a slow bleed where she takes more because you keep offering before she asks. Response windows are territory. The faster you reply, the less she wonders. The less she wonders, the less she invests. You think you are building a connection. You are building certainty, and certainty kills attraction. The text that waits 3 hours is not a punishment. It is proof you have a life she is not the center of. She will test your frame when you are tired, late at night, after a long day, when your defenses are low. She will pick a fight over nothing, push a boundary, and demand a decision. This is not an accident. This is a strategy, unconscious, but precise. The woman is not trying to hurt you. She is trying to see if you are still the man she chose. Shadow work is not optional in this equation. The parts of you that need her validation are the parts she will weaponize. If you need her to think well of you, she will withhold approval. If you need her to stay, she will threaten to leave. Your need is the hook. Her distance is the line. Nietzsche spoke of the will to power. In a relationship, power is not domination. It is the ability to walk away from what diminishes you. The man who cannot leave is the man who cannot lead. She will sense this in the first month, and every month after. She will test whether it is still true. You destroy yourself when you tolerate disrespect in the name of keeping peace. Peace is not the absence of conflict. It is the presence of boundaries honored by both sides. When she dismisses your time, your work, and your word, and you smile through it, you teach her contempt. Contempt is the slow poison that kills attraction long before the relationship officially ends. The forge is where metal becomes steel. Pressure, heat, and the willingness to endure discomfort. A woman does not destroy a man. She reveals whether he was ever forged in the first place. The man who crumbled under her tests was already brittle. She simply applied the weight that revealed what had always been here. Dating dynamics are economic. She offers beauty, youth, attention. These are finite assets that depreciate. You offer stability, resources, and frame. These are appreciated if you build them. When you act as if your assets are worthless, you enter the market as a beggar. Beggars do not get chosen. They get used until the transaction no longer serves them. Leverage is not manipulation. It is the natural result of building a life she wants access to. The man who has a mission, boundaries, and options does not need to convince her to stay. She stays because leaving means losing proximity to something rare. The moment you need her more than she needs you, the leverage inverts and the frame collapses. She will quietly destroy you by becoming the metric you measure your worth against. If she is happy, you are good. If she is distant, you are failing. This is the trap. You outsource your self-concept to her mood, and her mood becomes your master. The man who does this is no longer a man. He is a passenger in his own life. Selection is the most essential skill you are not teaching yourself. You do not choose women based on how they make you feel in the first 3 weeks. You choose based on how they behave when you enforce a boundary. The woman who respects your no is the woman worth keeping. The woman who punishes you now is the woman who will erode you inch by inch. Plato warned of the tyranny of appetite. When desire rules you, you become a slave to whatever feeds it. She is not the tyrant. Your unchecked need for her approval is. The man who cannot sit alone in his own company will always be ruled by whoever offers him escape from himself. You think she will love you more if you sacrifice more. This is the lie that destroys good men. She does not love you for what you give up. She loves you for what you will not compromise. The mission you refuse to abandon, the standard you refuse to lower, the frame you refuse to break. The storm is her emotional volatility. You do not stop the storm. You become the ground it cannot move. When she is angry, sad, anxious, or spiraling, your job is not to join her in the chaos. Your job is to remain anchored so she remembers what solid ground feels like. The man who panics when she panics becomes another child she has to manage. Attention economy rules the modern relationship. Every notification is a bid for your focus. Every late-night text is a test of whether your mission or her boredom wins. The man who always chooses her boredom loses the respect that makes her want to pick him. Individuation is the process of becoming whole. Jung taught that you cannot love another well if you are fragmented. When you pour yourself into her to feel complete, you make her responsible for your identity. That is not love. That is hostage-taking. She will destroy you quietly by making you think her happiness is your responsibility. It is not. You can support, encourage, protect, but you cannot carry her emotional state as your daily burden. The man who tries becomes resentful, exhausted, and eventually invisible to her. Boundaries are the architecture of respect. Without them, the relationship becomes a formless fog where nothing is clear and everything is negotiable. She does not want everything to be negotiable. She wants to know where the walls are. Walls are not rejection. Walls are the structure that makes intimacy safe. Masculine sovereignty means you do not explain yourself into the ground. You state what you will and will not accept, once, calmly. If she crosses it, you act. You do not lecture, threaten, or plead. Action is the language of self-respect. Words without action are noise. The throne is your frame. When you step off the throne to beg her to see your value, you lose the position that made you valuable. She does not want a man on his knees. She wants a man in his chair, unmoved by her moods, anchored in his mission. Gravity is what holds a relationship together. Not force, not control. Gravity. The natural pull created by a man who has weight, substance, and direction. When you shrink yourself to make her comfortable, you lose mass, and the pull weakens. She will test you by withdrawing. Silence, coldness, distance. These are her tools to see if you chase. The man who chases confirms he has no center. The man who continues his day without panic shows her the frame she was looking for. Strategy is not a sin. Understanding how she tests you is not cynicism. It is clarity. You do not resent her for testing. You prepare yourself to pass. The man who hates the test is the man who fails it. Responsibility is the antidote to blame. She did not destroy you. You allowed the erosion. Every boundary violated, every hour wasted, every mission abandoned. You chose it. Ownership is painful, but it is the only path back to power. The man who cannot enforce his boundaries will lose her respect. The man who loses her respect will lose her attraction. The man who loses her attraction will lose her presence. This sequence is inevitable, mechanical, and preventable. You do not need to be perfect. You need to be congruent. Say what you mean what you say, and follow through when lines are crossed. Congruence is the magnet. Inconsistency is the repellent. She will quietly destroy you if you let her become your religion. Worship makes you weak, and weakness repels the woman you are worshiping. She does not want your devotion. She wants your discernment. Walk.